Alrighty, well, we are going to mix it up a little bit for our 3:30 session. We have a panel discussion on managing time or business in 2021 with Bryan Jenkins and two special guests that he will introduce.
So we have Amanda Marek from RaceDay Events, and we have Rick Streeter from Leon Timing. So Amanda, why don't you give us a quick overview of your company and how you made it through 2020 and how things are kind of going now?
Yeah, so I work for RaceDay Events. We're a Madison, Wisconsin-based company, but we do everything across the country. I think we're in 33 states now. I'm the director of timing operations here. Obviously, events totally gone in 2020. We actually pivoted and did a lot of virtual fulfillment, which I'm sure we'll talk a little bit more about later. And now the floodgates are open and we are back full force, super busy, which is very exciting.
Great. So Rick, why don't you give us an overview of your company and what you guys did in 2020 and how things are looking now?
I'm Rick Streeter. Yeah, I'm with Leon Timing. We're based out of Syracuse, New York. We generally time between 300 and 350 events a year. A lot of small events, a few big ones. Last year, when everything, about 2 weeks before everything came crashing down, we timed the Olympic marathon trials, which was really cool for us. We got a lot of experience down in Atlanta with that. Shortly after, obviously, the pandemic hit, we took advantage of, like everybody else, PPP, did some layoffs, things like that. And then obviously in April, we pivoted towards the virtual events. And then, as Amanda said, the virtual fulfillment as well, and did a lot of that. On our end, we had over 25,000 virtual entries at the events that we put together. So it really kept us going throughout the pandemic, and honestly, we're still doing it right now into August. We'll still be doing fulfillment and stuff for virtual events that we started last December. So that's where we're at right now. And things like she said, we're full force and we're back. This fall is looking as busy as ever for us. So we're excited.
Yeah, Amanda, maybe you can illuminate a little bit on that fulfillment side. I think people are a little blown away with what you guys have been doing.
Yeah, so previous to the pandemic, we worked with Sourfish Events and their Gordy's Pumpkin Run. We timed and helped produce all of their races. And so when the pandemic hit, we talked with Eric and Courtney, the owners, and decided, you know what, we're gonna take on their fulfillment, and we kind of turned our warehouse into a little mini Amazon. And Sourfish Events, they did, between their two events, they did about 96,000 participants. And since then, we've continued that as a business line and actually developed it into, really its own department, to the point now that we've hired somebody to manage that. And I think to date now we've shipped over 300,000 packages. So it was definitely a crazy fall for us, even without timing events.
Yeah, that's a huge number. I did not realize it had gotten that big.
Oh yeah, we're to the point that we have a few consistent customers that they're doing really well. And then we'll continue to do Sourfish's fulfillment again this year.
Awesome. So kind of taking some of that same train of thought. So what key adaptations did you make in 2020 that you guys are carrying forward into 2021? And Amanda, you can go ahead and go first.
Sure. Well, like I said, obviously we're carrying fulfillment forward. But when it comes specific to the event side of things, we were able to produce a handful of owned events that, they were smaller. We did the open start line. So, start within your wave time, but the start line is open for 4 hours. That stuff has completely gone away now. Start lines, I would say for the most part, at least in Wisconsin, are back to normal. But in terms of things that we've now kept in place that we pushed forward during COVID, I would say the biggest one is we are doing nothing with on-site results. So we felt that, people crowding around an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper taped to a van is probably not the most COVID friendly thing. So now we provide all of our race directors with a custom QR code that goes to their RunSignup result page. We send that to them ahead of time, and they can print all of those off. So far, the biggest hit has been putting them inside porta potties. So people could kind of just scan for their results once those are online. And then the biggest thing is honestly, we're pushing everybody towards RunSignup, and that's so we can do more with RaceJoy and more with results text messages, just to kind of keep fewer touch points when you're actually at the event.
I think Rick and I like the porta potty QR code.
It was actually a kids event was the first time I saw it, and now that's what I suggest, and you see it everywhere now. People love it.
So Rick, what changes did you make in 2020 that you're thinking that you're going to carry forward?
Basically the same thing she said. We've got a couple, we're now making our virtual events into live events. So we've got the One New York series that we're turning into a live event. And then, like she said, we do still have a few start lines that are taking a couple hours. And I suspect that will probably into the winter up in New York, at least. I mean, I know that I just wrote a quote yesterday for an event that was asking specifically for that. So I know that hasn't gone away totally in our area, but it will keep happening. And similar, we're texting all results as well, same as they are. And the QR code, that's very interesting, because I mean, we were doing QR code stuff 5 or 6 years ago with track and field, and then it kind of died, and everything went away, and no one really was doing the QR code thing. And then when restaurants needed to start using it for menus, now it's back again. So yeah, I feel like that kind of made a resurgence. So, but very similar to her, and obviously the fulfillment as well for other events and things like that. And we're also doing a little bit more with, obviously merchandising and store items and stuff as well on the side. So.
Yeah, I like the QR code thing. To your point, Rick, I saw the same thing. Like it just went away, but it is a really elegant solution. And for a higher end event like One New York, you could even put a QR code on their bib for their personalized result page, which is super nice. I mean, it's way more elegant than a kiosk where you got to smash your bib number in or your name or whatever. It's like, I just scan it and then I get my result.
Right. So, and that's for all ages too. I mean, I think 5 or 6 years ago, it was only the tech savvy people. You needed a specific code. You needed a specific app on your phone to read a QR code. And now, at least with iPhone, I know you're just the photo.
It's just the camera.
Yeah, the camera will do it. So a lot easier I think I was out with my mom for dinner last week, and she was showing my niece, just scan it here. And that's something that wouldn't have happened before. So, yeah.
So, with you guys being in New York, Rick, and you did mention a little bit with those extended start lines, how is that impacting your decisions and recommendations you're making to clients for the rest of this year, let's say?
Well, we're still, we've been very conservative, as you know. We've been telling people to just not stick to anything specifically, just follow CDC and New York State guidelines. So don't put anything out there if 6 months in advance. So we're still saying for my turkey trot that we're announcing in the next couple of weeks, I think it opens on August 9th. We're not putting out there any guidelines, but yeah, we're just saying we will follow that when it comes up. And that's what we've been saying, I think, since February, March. So we're not telling people to do a certain thing and stick with it. We're definitely follow the guidelines at all times. So
great. So, things are a little bit different. In Wisconsin, are you guys giving your customers any different recommendations? But I know you're servicing a lot of different states. So how does that come into play, having 33 different states potentially you're interacting with?
Yeah, most of our business is in Wisconsin. So the races we work with outside of Wisconsin, much lower number, and they tend to be a little bit larger races. So they've kind of have their own guidelines down and things like that. But like what Rick is doing, very similar. It's, follow CDC guidelines. And then beyond that, we've kind of noticed that we've, for at least for other race directors, we've kind of become like consultants, you know, so we'll talk about, this is what we've seen work, this is what we've seen not go well. But yeah, for the most part, same thing, just CDC guidelines and share your experiences.
So one of the things that I wanted to ask both of you about is something I've run into quite a bit is staffing issues. So a lot of timers are having difficulty with staffing because some people didn't have any work at all. You guys, you've both been fairly reasonably busy comparative to others. So how are you guys handling, staffing right now? And maybe you go first, Amanda, sorry.
Sure, yeah. So we've always kind of had a nice staffing process in place. We use a survey and a scheduling system, and it's normally booked about 2 months out. Obviously, when the pandemic hit, thankfully we were able to hold on to our full-time staff, but those full-time staff also became all of our event staff. So we did lose some weekend help. Most of it stayed around. But we've noticed that we have to do a little bit more begging now, personal asks, personal reach outs to get people to come out. So it's definitely our biggest stress point right now is making sure we can staff all the events that we have. But in regards directly to timing, we're fast tracking timers miles and miles ahead of what we've done in the past. And pretty much all of that is possible due to race day scoring. So 2019, up until the end of 2019, we were run score timers. I love run score. I consider myself kind of old school. Had people here push me towards race day scoring. And if Matt Avery isn't gray yet, he will be because of me. So we've noticed that with race day scoring, the ability to train timers that don't see the software every day is tremendously easier. So we could train a weekend warrior timer who's going to see the software once or twice a month, maybe 3 times a month. We could train them in an hour, whereas run score would take 4 or 5 hours shadowing somebody, and then it would take repetition on top of that just to remember what keys to hit and what buttons to press. Whereas now we have these timers going out, they could open up the software and it's all plug and play. So really that has been our saving grace in being able to time all the events that we're timing when the floodgates kind of open.
So Rick, how has staffing been for you guys? I know you mentioned you did have to do a little bit of, layoffs and things like that. So I'm not sure if it's been a little different for you.
Yeah, I think last March when the pandemic hit, we were at 8 full-time people. And I think we run about 22 to 25 checks a month. We pay monthly. And now we're down to 7. We laid off 3 and gained 2 back in the last year. But we kept 5. We kept the core 5 of us throughout the year. That there really are. We have 5 to 6 main lead timers, and those guys have stayed with us the whole time. The ones we laid off were the warehouse manager, and then a data person. So I mean, just like she said, I mean, they came back, and we're begging. We're begging for people to. We're begging part timers to come back. I know we have a part time lead timer that only works. He's a weekend warrior, like she said. He doesn't have a job throughout the week. And last year we were paying him $25 an hour for an event with a minimum of 5 or 6 hours. This year he wants 35. Those are real numbers. And so, I mean, we're going to end up eating a lot of those costs since we don't have the budgets already built in for this year, or since we're rolling over an invoice or a proposal from 2019. So probably my partner and I will eat a lot of those costs, and it's fine. And we'll have to deal with it, and we'll have to plan for next year. So, but currently right now we probably have about a dozen or so part-timers. So we're about probably half what we were last year or 2019. So we've told a lot of our race directors that we've just said, hey, we're going to take care of you this fall. I know it's going to be a really, really crunched up few months. We're going to take care of you no matter what. We're going to get results out, and they're going to be as fast, but we might not have all the bells and whistles. We may not bring the video boards or the extra splits or something, but we're going to take care of you. And every single client's been super receptive to that. And, but we have had to cut a few clients. We've had to cut down and say, hey, I can't bring 3 people to your event or 4 people to your event. It's just going to be myself and one other. So I just can't bring the extra set of video boards or something along that, or the lookup computers and stuff if we were doing that. So, hey, it's just going to be the texting or just online results. So that's all.
Yeah. So the one other thing I thought might be helpful, because I'm not sure everybody knows, can you give us kind of an overview of One New York, and now that you're rolling it into in-person, Rick? Because I think that's kind of an interesting thing that you're doing.
Yeah, the genesis of One New York was kind of my business partners were, because that's a different company, a production company. They wanted to have a virtual Syracuse Half Marathon, which is an event that we produced in November. And I was very against that last year. This was early COVID when virtual was not really a thing. I go, no, I don't want to cheapen the event. I put a lot of time into the Syracuse Half. I don't want to have some virtual event, not doing it. But let's name it something else. And that's obviously when the Race Across Tennessee started. I think this was around April 22nd last year. And we said, well, they're having luck. They've got like 1,500 people. They've only been open for a week. Let's try to do something in New York that's similar. And one of my other partners, made a map, and it just kind of took off. And within a few weeks, we had about 13,000 entries. And it was, it kind of led into a second and a third and a fourth virtual race that really we made $250,000 in donations to first responders, and obviously a lot of local charities, and then obviously it's kept us afloat. So that led us into, well, now we have this Facebook group with I think there's about 6,200 or so in it, so it's not quite as big as some other ones, but a lot of them really, we're averaging about 10,000 posts a month, so about 300 a day or so. And these people are actually, a lot of them we've noticed that really kind of know each other from the Facebook group, and they're excited to meet each other. So we decided to do a One New York live event, and that's going to be on November 14th this year. And hopefully our numbers are, we'll get up there for that as well. So that's how that started.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that. I think the point that I wanted the timers to hear on this is that if you have a customer that you work with that had a really successful virtual race and they've not done an in-person event, there could be a really good opportunity to turn that into an in-person event. And Rick's given some pretty good data there, like 300 posts a day. That is showing some real activity there. And there's likely some of those people want to meet or want to do something in person. Some may not, but I think if you're talking to customers, you can check out One New York's Facebook page and kind of see some of the messaging they're doing there, that your customer that did a successful virtual race may be able to do something similar.
Mm-hmm.
So we're coming up on time. Amanda, did you have anything else that that you thought would be important to share that you're doing on the timing side right now?
Honestly, our biggest thing really is just continuing to train timers. It seems like we're getting more and more events. Maybe for some, the participant numbers aren't necessarily there, but more events are coming along. And whether that's a product of starting new races or, sadly, people have left the business, timers around. There have been a couple timers in the Wisconsin area that have called it since COVID. And the biggest thing for us is to keep training people and not just to stop at that basic level. So we're now to the point that we're kind of putting together like an advanced timer training. So, we have weekend warriors that can go out and run an expo start to finish with dynamic bib assignment, and really kind of take lead of the larger races that our full-time staff would normally do.
Yeah, and I know you've mentioned this, but have you started developing like a core curriculum and testing for onboarding new people yet? Or are you not quite there yet?
I wouldn't say we have something that's like written in stone. You know, we have just kind of a general process that we follow. And that's just, we bring people in once we kind of identify them as like, you would make a good timer. We bring them in, it's just in office training, or for some people, if they're across the state, it's, you know, virtual training. And then from there, they go out and they'll shadow a timer. And then they will time a race with a timer there to kind of, you know, answer any questions, feel a little bit more comfortable. And then from there, as long as they seem good, they seem like they have everything down and they're comfortable, we let them out into the wild. And then from there, we start to identify who are those people that, you know, that they can time a triathlon, that they can do something more complex with different types of scoring, or split points, things with, you know, leading a dynamic bib assignment or an expo. And so hopefully over the winter, we'll be able to put something more structured in place to really kind of raise people up. But for now, it's just getting people out there and getting people timing.
That's something that we're looking at too, is trying to develop a race day scoring training program for timers to be able to run their staff through, or some sort of test to be able to kind of do. There's certain things we can't test on. So, hey, you got MyLabs versus Race Result versus Chronotrack,
Sure.
But we can still simulate a lot of that.
Yeah.
So the people in the audience, do we have any questions maybe we can ask? We've got, I think the next session starts at 4, so I'll try to push it here a couple more minutes, or 4 o'clock Eastern. Any questions coming in from the group? I saw one come in, but we actually addressed it.
Yeah, the only question was answered.
Good.
All right. Thanks so much, Bryan, Amanda, and Rick. We'll take about an 8-minute break, and we'll be back at 4 p.m. on an update on RaceJoy Certified Timer with Shelly Harris. Feel free to stick around, or you can join a different room. Thanks, guys.
Have a good time on the boat, Rick.
Will do. Thank you.